Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this issue is a bit close to our hearts, to the Senate President's heart, as well as mine and Senator Manny Pacquiao. Mr. President, the world is astounded by a lot of big things. A president wakes up to massive protests worldwide even before he starts his first day at the White House. Yale University announces imminent fisheries collapse with China's island grab and construction of the West Philippine Sea. OPEC fuels oil price hikes. Avalanches and floods cause death and destruction in many areas. Our military confirms foreign terrorists are training in the country. Indeed, we should be astounded by all these big things, Mr. President. However, my colleagues, my dear friends, let us hear the plight of the small man, called the Sakada. Some of them manobos, some of them children, and they are now in the midst of deception foisted by a labor recruiter masquerading as a cooperative serving one of the biggest sugar farms in the country. I'm referring to the hundreds of Sakadas from Bukidnon, Cotabato, and Davao recruited by a certain Green Hand labor service cooperative to work at Hacienda Luisita. My kababayans were promised big wages, good accommodations, all mandatory social security and health benefits, free transportation to and from work, and free meals. All those promises were broken, Mr. President. The wages were starvation wages. The bunkhouses were cramped. No proof of mandatory contributions remitted to government agencies were found. Clearly, these are labor issues that would have been a simpler issue against Green Hand and the Hacienda. However, one aspect of this deception has made this much more serious. The Sakadas were recruited from faraway Bukidnon and areas of Mindanao. They were ferried from Mindanao Island to the central plains of Luzon. If the Sakada, even just one Sakada, opted out of working at the farm, and even if Green Hand allowed him to go, he could not have done so on his own. Every day, the Sakada is worked to the bone, not being given a decent meal, and promised and shortchanged monetarily with wages as low as 9 pesos and 46 centavos per day due to the Pacquiaoan nature of cutting and loading of sugarcane. Let me repeat, Mr. President, this is less than 10 pesos a day. Dahil napakalayo ng Tarlac, hindi niya kaya ang pamasahe, lalong-lalo na hindi niya kayang lumangoy pauwi sa bahay niya sa Bukidnon. It's max of human trafficking, Mr. President, and Green Hand made sure the Sakada would not dare escape Green Hand's stranglehold on him. That's why they had to be rescued by the Department of Agrarian Reform and the DSWD from the Central Azucarera de Tarlac area. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I join everyone to listen to the interview of one of the rescued Sakada, Mr. Mario Memper.
Ang hinigaan nila parang bahay ng kambing o kahit anong parang bahay ng animal, hayop. Para silang hindi mga tao, para silang mga hayop doon. Noong August 10, pinuntahan ako doon sa bahay namin mismo ni Billy Baitos, isang manager ng Green Hand Labor Cooperative Company. Ang sadya niya doon sa amin, mayroong livelihood program na i-conduct natin, koneksyonin ito kay President Rodrigo Duterte. Sinasabi niya sa tao, magpunta doon sa Tarlac, magtapas ng tubo. Ang kondisyon, libre ng pagkain, libre ang wigas, libre ang ulam, mayroong is-is, pag-ibig, PhilHealth, insurance. Tirahan daw namin ang isang malaking hotel, tirahan ng mga asakadas, at ang katabi ng hotel isang ospital. Inasahan niya namin, yun nga, na maraming ang taga-Bukidnon nagpunta. Pag abot namin doon sa Tarlac, Barangay Mapalaksyaw, kami nag-expect na yun na ang compound namin kasi parang bilibid, parang prisuhan talaga. Walang kisame, napakainit talaga at napakabaho. So, duda na kami na bakit nagkaiba. So, may duda na kami pag abot namin sa Mapalaksyaw. Yung sinasabi niya na libre ng pagkain, libre ng bigas, libreng PhilHealth is kahit isa, walang natupad. Sinasabi nila na by tunil, by tonnage, 220 per attans. So, sinasabi pa nila na maganda ang tubo doon sa Tarlac. Sa isang linggo, makakuha ng 5 load ang tao, pero ang makuha lang nila, yung 2 load lang. Pundo daw nila yung 3 load. 30 katao ang maghati doon sa isang linggo. So, paano na? Wala nang pamilya nila, hindi na wala nang ipapadala sa pamilya. Kasi short, kasi yung 2 load, diyan na kukunin ang deduction sa pagkain at ulam.
So, Mr. President, when I watched this video, the first time I saw this documentary that was released recently, I was in tears because mga kababayan ko ito. As a matter of fact, one of them passed away. He was an elderly sakada. And I happened to find out that he came from my own barangay, Barangay San Miguel, Bukidnon. And that broke my heart, and so I decided to take action. But in fairness, Mr. President, I spoke to Hacienda Luisita through a intermediary, the Lorenzo family. And you know, Mr. President, the Lorenzo family also have farms in Bukidnon, and they're not known for that type of activity. Apparently, they are also appalled, and they condemn the actions of this cooperative, labor cooperative, and are willing to support the investigation and file the necessary charges if need be. I would like to put that also on record. So, Mr. President, it's the 17th year in the 21st century, yet evil hands employ 16th century tactics to force fellow Filipinos to work the land for cash, crop, or sugar. We have a sugar amelioration fund. It addressed the planters and farmers' need for capital. We have the Sugar Industry Development Act. It addressed the farmers' income, productivity, marketing, health, education, and pension needs of workers and agrarian reform beneficiaries in sugar lands. We have the Philippine Cooperative Code that encourages self-help in achieving economic strength through cooperativism. In other words, we Filipinos have always struggled to free fellow men from our fellow men from exploitation. Filipinos won the revolution. We launched reforms. Our laws, development plans, and our national budgets have been evolving in order to address old emerging problems, especially on economic inequality rather. And now, to our charging, comes a labor recruiter calling itself a cooperative. This is what angers me the most, Mr. President. Giving cooperatives a bad name. It ferried workers to a hacienda which bullheadedly resists change. Their business model harks back to the cacique system of centuries ago. They have a hard time acknowledging and implementing basic reforms. So much so that the Tarlaqueños refuse to work their land, their own kababayans, because of the difficulty of the job at hand. The canes were ripe for harvesting, but bitter labor conditions and paltry wages made harvesting sugar not sweet at all. So now they preyed on workers from Bukidnon. Mr. President, let me echo the plea of Mr. Memper to those who would be approached by green hand labor service cooperatives or other similar devious schemes.
Mga asagadas, kung sa susunod na may mga matatamis na salita para sa ikuan sa inyo, kung maaari sana wag na kayo kasi tamang-tama na po, sapat na po sa amin na kami lang ang nabiktima nito. Hindi makatao para sa asagadas ang pagtrata nila sa mga tao.
So, Mr. President, at this time, DOLE and the NLRC are investigating the matter. Based on those developments, your Committee on Cooperatives proposes to investigate the plight of the Bukidnon and Mindanao workers in order to address their demand for fair treatment, just compensation, and for the parties responsible for their plight to be brought to justice, and crafting measures to prevent the same in the future. Towards this, I filed a Senate Resolution 247. Mr. President, ang atong mga kababayans are trying to get their best value for their labor, which is their small plot of land that they all possess. Let no one cheat them with false promises. Let no one violate their economic and social rights by uprooting them from their homes and preventing them to seek real greener pastures at their own free will. Lastly, let no one destroy our chance for rural development through cooperativism as mandated by the Constitution. Let no oppressive labor practice disguised as a labor service cooperative destroy the good name and noble ideas of true cooperatives. On this, I enjoin you to support the inquiry to be carried out by the appropriate committees, as it has already been directed to the Committee on Cooperatives and to Senator Joel Villanueva's Committee on Labor, to resolve and craft measures so that the sugar workers do not receive the short end of the cane. I thank you, Mr. President, my dear colleagues.